It was weird because a lot of the time, all I could think was, I'm so glad this is me and not him again. Because watching him go through that was awful. Because he was a 3-month-old baby, he had treatment for about 8 months. My name is Jackie. I'm from Grantsville, Utah. I was diagnosed in 2021 with dysgerminoma ovarian cancer. My cancer journey was a struggle, and it was also enlightening. My first symptoms were I had pain in my right side of my abdomen, like it felt like period cramps, so I just thought it was like a period coming on, and it was no big deal. And then over the next few hours of when it started, it just gradually got worse, and I started throwing up, and it was just abnormal for me to feel like that. So it was pretty much the worst pain I've ever been in my entire life. I literally thought, so they took me to the emergency room, and I thought it was like a appendicitis or something because it was on that right side. So they took me back, and just the doctors were like, let's do a CT scan. So they did a CT scan, and found that there was something in like the ovary fallopian tube kind of area on my right side. So that's when they went back and did surgery. We did the surgery. It was like 8 o'clock at night, almost 10 by the time we got back into surgery. We did the surgery, found that there was a tumor like this big in my right side, and then a smaller tumor on my left side. So they took the tumor out of my right side, and the ovary, because they knew that they couldn't save the right ovary. But the left side, they left the ovary with and just took out the small tumor because me and my husband was still wanted to have more kids, and we needed at least one ovary to do that. So that's when they left that ovary. So then they sent off the tumor for pathology, and I get a call from my OBGYN later. She's like, hey, we got to meet up. I need to give you some information about your tumor. And I was concerned, obviously, because they were like talking about what they needed to talk about with my tumor. And so she told that was March 10th of 2021. I was 27, and that's when she told me that I had a rare kind of ovarian cancer called dysgerminoma ovarian cancer. I just automatically started crying. I was like, why? I'm 27. Why am I having these problems? I'm not that old. I really wanted to have more kids. And when she told me that I had to have the left ovary removed, I just automatically was like, this just isn't fair. Like, I wanted one more. I already have a son, which I'm really grateful for, at least to have one. But it just felt unfair to me. I know I've said that a lot, but that's just kind of how it felt. And I was just really sad and felt really down. I was like, I just wanted more, and that's all I could really say. My dad had colon cancer. Like, um, my grandpa's had like skin cancer a few times. My son actually had neuroblastoma when he was a baby. Like, we've had a lot of cancer in my family, but it didn't like. And I asked them, I was like, is my son's cancer and mine related even? Like, that's kind of weird that we would both have cancer at such a young age. And they said that they weren't related. It was weird because a lot of the time, all I could think was, I'm so glad this is me and not him again. Because watching him go through that was awful. Because he was a 3-month-old baby, he had treatment for about 8 months. Or it was about 6 months because it was 8 rounds. And a lot of what I could think of was, I'm just grateful it's not him because I've seen him go through this and how awful it is. And thinking now, personally, seeing how awful it is to go through myself, um, that I'm just grateful that it wasn't him again. After the first surgery that I had, and then I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer the first time, they had to go back in and surgically remove the left ovary because they couldn't have the cancer spreading to anything else. So they took out the left ovary, and they just decided, okay, we're good. They took out some lymph nodes in there to make sure that it wouldn't spread and anything like that. So that's when they took out the left ovary. And then it was later that I relapsed. It was just another CT scan, just doing my routine every 3 months. And that's when I met with my OBGYN oncologist. And she said that on my CT scan that the lymph nodes looked enlarged. So there were just a couple in my abdomen. So they decided to do a biopsy. So they took a biopsy through my back to get to the lymph nodes. And that's when they discovered that my ovarian cancer had come back. And this time I actually needed to have chemotherapy because they just needed to make sure that it was all gone this time. I started chemotherapy in like July of 2022. And it was, I would go for 1 week for 5 days. And then the next 2 weeks after that, I would go on a Tuesday and a Tuesday. And then I would go for another week. And then a Tuesday, and then a week, and then a Tuesday. I hope that makes sense. So it was like 3 months of 1 week and then 2 Tuesdays. But I did 3 cycles. So one cycle was 5 days, and then the Tuesday, if that makes sense. I felt nauseous a lot, but I never threw up or anything, which I was really grateful for. Uh, I think the biggest side effect was I was tired and I was having memory issues. I was really trying to remember things. And then after chemotherapy, every time I had chemo, I would feel really lightheaded and dizzy. So I would make my husband drive me home from having chemo every time I would go in. I did lose my hair. Mostly it was because my scalp started to hurt, and when I would like lay down to go to sleep, it like would it was just not it just hurt. So I was like, husband, like let's just shave it off. We're gonna eventually have to do this. So um, we shaved it off, and it felt a lot better. So my hair now is like almost 3 years of hair growth. I haven't trimmed it at all because I don't want to. I started chemo in July and I finished in September. September 6th was when I got to ring the no more chemo bell. That was a great day. And then I have had scans. The first year I had them every 3 months. And then after a year, I had them every 6 months. And now I have them every year. Just CT scans, sometimes PET scans, but usually it's just a CT scan. I actually had a back problem during this whole thing. I had a herniated disc, and it made my treatment so much worse because I was using a cane to walk into my chemotherapy sessions because it hurt so bad. So that was like probably the worst part of it, was having that extreme pain on top of being nauseous, on top of the memory loss. And that depression, I already struggle with depression, anxiety. It just heightened all that because I was like, I just don't know if I can make it through all this. So that was the struggle. That was a lot of it. So I had to wait 4 weeks after my last chemo treatment to have my back surgery. So I ended up doing that. I've actually done a therapy called DBT. I don't know if you've heard of it. I think it's called dialectical behavioral therapy. And that actually helped me get through a lot of it because I was actually learning about that during my cancer treatment when I was going through everything. The first time I was actually going through a therapy that was DBT. And so I used a lot of DBT therapy coping skills to get through. Just like I would work on like meditation because that was a big one. Like using ice on your face when you'd really be struggling, which would kind of shock your system in a way. Um, there are a few other ones, but I can't think of them. But that was a big one. A lot of it's like, and then there's one that's like compare your life to, not in a bad way, but like to others and see how well you can have it compared to other people because there's always going to be someone that has it harder or worse than you, which you can always look to the good, and which was helpful for me to kind of see like even when I'd go in for treatment, I'd see like people that would have to stay there for longer than me, like all day. My long weeks that I had to go in for the 5 day week, those were about 4 hours of chemotherapy. But I would see people that had been there for like 8 hours, and I just kept thinking, I'm like, I'm just grateful that it's only four. It could be worse. My message of hope is that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, whether, you know, it doesn't matter how it ends, I guess. There is some sort of light, and there's a lot of love that you can get from people. I think a lot of, especially watching my son go through cancer, I learned how generous and loving people are when you do go through struggles like that. Because we got a lot of support when my son was going through cancer, when I was going through cancer, we got a lot of support. And I think before that, I kind of thought like the world is so evil and people don't love each other. And after going through both of those, I found, wow, there really are a lot of loving and caring people who give a lot and care about you. And I think that's something I've learned a lot about. My one piece of advice would be just try to stay positive. I know it's really hard, but it really does help when you're in a good mindset. And if you need to, go to therapy because it really does help if you're really struggling. Because it's not an easy thing to do. It's not easy. It's a struggle mentally and it's a struggle physically. And I think staying positive, really trying to realize all the blessings and good things that are going on can be really helpful.